vital importance. And we applaud the Connecticut Mortgage Bankers Association for taking a hard look at overcoming some of these barriers. And we know that working together, we can all keep the dream of home ownership available to as many people as possible. Again, I thank you.
Delegation and national housing organizations. He holds a BA in Political Science and Psychology from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and has completed graduate work in teaching. He's been with the partnership since fall of 2001. Please join me in welcoming Shelley Mervis.
And I was working so hard just to get anybody to pay attention. Now, 5 years later, I have to work even harder just to keep up with everyone's enthusiasm for the issue. And there's a lot happening. I think politically, a lot of constituencies and players are aligning who really care about the issue. It's showing up in the press all the time, and people want to do something. We do outreach, and I drive around the state and talk with groups and various people. And it used to be that you would talk to a community group about affordable housing, and they'd be like, "Huh? We don't want any of that there." And now these conversations are different. They're like, "Oh, okay, I think I see. Maybe we can find a way to do this." And the tone has completely changed, and it's in large part to many of you in this room and the whole community of organizations that work on this, I think have found ways to coalesce and come together and work in a more coordinated fashion and really get things done. So I'm very pleased. This Home Connecticut campaign we started about a year ago. There are some information that we gave out in a folder there, and you can rifle through now or save it for later. But what's fascinating about this campaign is we have a steering committee of about 8 on our steering committee, and they've been extremely helpful. We've got a variety of chambers of commerce involved. We've got Bill Sebas, who used to be Chancellor of the Connecticut State University system and former OPM director involved. And we've got a lot of good people, and it's moving. What I'd like to do at the moment is pause and show you this 12-minute video that we had created, which really encapsulates a lot of the issues that we're talking about with the campaign. And this is an outreach tool that we've been using with groups and communities around the state. And as you look at it, you might even think about organizations or boards of directors or community groups or anyone else around the state who might like to view this and have a little presentation. And we're happy to come and do a visit and all that. So let me just pause and show you this, and then I can get into more details about the campaign.
I'm Jim Smith, Chairman of Webster Bank. I've lived in Connecticut my entire life. Like you, I love our state. It's beautiful. It has remarkable cultural resources, and it's filled with wonderful people, fascinating places, and things to do. But the prized quality of our life in Connecticut is in danger today because affordable housing is becoming scarce. Home prices have skyrocketed. Skilled workers, young people at home to buy or rent. If we don't increase the supply of affordable housing, our economy will suffer. Workers will leave Connecticut, and businesses will follow. I hate to say it, but it's happening now. And no business will come, stay, or expand here if it can't find the skilled workers it needs. Please take a moment now to learn more about the challenge we face and how we can overcome it. Everyone deserves a safe, secure, affordable place to live. Together, we can make sure they can have it.
The beautiful state we call home. Think about this. The median home sales price in Connecticut is more than $300,000. Qualifying household income to buy a home like that is approximately $100,000. Yet there are engineers, school administrators, biologists, and many other professionals who don't make that much. So if you are a young college grad hoping to move back to this state to be close to the family, or you are a teacher who just landed a job in a well-to-do suburb, or you are a nurse, a news reporter, an auto mechanic, or a paramedic, the dream of owning a home or even renting an apartment you can afford in your hometown is probably beyond your reach.
We would like to stay in Connecticut. Our families are in Connecticut. We'd like to raise our kids here. We like the school systems. We're both products of Connecticut schools. I mean, it would take us quite a while, I think, to save up money for a down payment.
Quite a number of years just to afford a two-bedroom home, which if we have another child, that's not going to fit our needs anyway. Mid-200s are the asking prices of most homes out there. At 10%, who can afford $25,000 to save? I mean, if you're making 30 grand a year, 25,000 is almost your entire salary for an entire year.
I moved to Norwalk in 1969, and I bought a 3-bedroom ranch for $26,000. Today, someone cannot move to Norwalk and buy a 3-bedroom ranch for $260,000. So it affects people that want to buy up young families that need another bedroom. If they sell their home in Norwalk, it's almost impossible for them to buy a bigger home in Norwalk.
My income is just covering the bare essentials, if that. And it's you know, in the future, as the cost of living goes up and inflation comes into play, it really is a bad situation.
There aren't even words that can express a mother's love for their children. And when you're not sure where you're going to be, where the next meal's coming from, the last thing you want to do is make them leave the town, their grandparents on both sides that are still living, and all the friends that they've developed through the years.
In the last 5 years, workers' wages in Connecticut have increased significantly, but housing costs have risen 3 times faster. This means that even while people's income is increasing, housing is moving further and further out of reach. Residents who have grown up in a town may no longer be able to afford to live there near friends, family, and community.
Stantonboro has a tradition of Portuguese fishermen and the fishing fleet. We have the last commercial fishing fleet in the state, and they're going to not be able to live here. And my parents wouldn't be able to live here; they'd have to move out of town. And my children, when they get older, are going to have to find someplace else.
Connecticut's population of 20 to 34-year-olds has been steadily decreasing. The exodus causes a $130 million loss in state revenue, and businesses can't find skilled workers.
Housing has been a very critical factor in recruitment here. We've lost a lot of folks because they just cannot afford the housing costs associated with Connecticut right now.
It costs a lot. A lot of a salary, a huge portion of a salary goes towards a home purchase, and there's less for everything else, and it makes that area less advantageous of a place to live and work and for a company to nest.
We had a company look to move some engineers in from California coast, not the expensive part of the coast. The income was between $45,000 and $55,000. None of them took the job because none of them could take the job. Compared to the housing they had where they came from, they couldn't make the move, not one.
I would say 25 to 35% of our teachers do not live in Norwalk. They don't live in Fairfield County, they live outside of Fairfield County.
So the service workers, the teachers, the first responders aren't going to be able to live here, and they're going to look in other towns. And the ripple effect is that when they start looking in other towns to live, they're not going to work in Stonington either. They're going to look to work close to where they live.
An ample supply of housing is essential for Connecticut to keep jobs and maintain strong neighborhoods and families. But we simply have not been producing enough housing to keep up with the need. So the scarcity of housing drives up the price. In recent years, Connecticut has been 47th among the 50 states in housing production. We're simply not building enough homes for our children, our workers, our parents, and our families. Without affordable starter homes and rentals, our 20 to 34-year-olds, our young professionals, and our young couples will keep moving out of Connecticut. We can keep them here with more of today's affordable housing, which looks great and is well built and designed to blend well with each neighborhood's architecture, transportation system, and other resources. Even our aging but classically attractive existing stock can be restored to enhance neighborhoods and still remain affordable.
This is a 38-house subdivision. If you look through this subdivision right now, you can't tell the difference between a quote-unquote affordable house and a house that's market rate. These aren't people that are not working. These are people that are working primarily in the community where we built the houses.
There's 80 units here in Old Oak Village, 24 of which are part of the HOG program, and we are scattered throughout the entire development so that you're not segregated or stereotyped. My neighbor next door is an attorney. I live across the street from a teacher. It's very diverse, and it's been a wonderful environment thus far.
Affordable housing in the past weren't always the most attractive. The Old Farms Crossing in Avon has won an award because it's such an attractive building. And we have brand new housing developments in Avon selling from $400,000 to $600,000. I don't think anywhere near as attractive as this Old Farms Crossing.
Louise Moquette can live at Old Farms Crossing on a modest income earned at 2 jobs. Here he has found a new opportunity for his family. Unlike thousands of Connecticut families who are denied the same opportunity because the supply simply isn't there.
Before I was living in a 1-level apartment. Now I have a 2-level, like somewhat a house, what they call a townhouse. I mean, pretty much a American dream living in a house with a picket fence around. Neighbors are pretty much working class, just like myself. Same thing, working, they provide jobs, having kids themselves. And I mean, they love it here. I love the environment. The kids play with each other all the time here. The kids get along here very well. There's so many opportunities here for them to have a better life than I think sure they had before.
There's a need for affordable housing, and this is filling part of that void. We could use more, and I think the residents would like to see more, especially if it was built like the present Old Farms Crossing.
Affordable housing, built or restored in town centers, helps revitalize downtown areas, as it has in Norwich.
Affordable housing in the downtown area creates an opportunity for small businesses, creates an opportunity for shops, it creates an opportunity for economic gain. It has created a mixed-use downtown area.
The lack of affordable housing is not a problem that will disappear on its own. Municipalities, state policymakers, the business community, and developers must work together to create housing for residents at all income levels. To keep Connecticut the beautiful state we all love will take some work, but many communities are proving that it can be done.
I'd rather not move out of Danbury because I have a lot of friends who grew up in this area or have been here a long, long time. And we're all in the same boat where we feel that we would like to stay. We have friends here, we have families here, we've worked in town, we've served on commissions, and we've served as volunteers, and we feel that it's only fair that perhaps now that we need some help from the city or from someone, that we should be able to get that help.
All of our family are here, our friends, everything that we know is in Connecticut.
We would like to stay in Connecticut, but we could get into a home sooner than another state, I believe. There's a lot of places in the United States that have a better cost of living, and houses are more inexpensive.
Economically, it may make better sense to go elsewhere.
We have our work cut out for us, but I'm optimistic because we know what we need. We know that affordable housing can be designed beautifully and functionally. We know it can be located in the right place and expand the municipal tax base while reducing sprawl. We know it doesn't hurt neighboring property values, and we know there is a strong market for it. Finally, we know that working together, we can meet this challenge. If municipal and state officials join hands with the business community, the academic and service sectors, and all of our other great institutions, we can find a way to make affordable housing available for our current and future citizens. In doing so, we will preserve Connecticut as a wonderful place to live and raise our families. Let's get together and make it happen.
Housing. And in the meantime, the housing problem has gotten so much worse. So, the good side is that we've got this growing awareness, which means we've got a growing ability to get something done. But the downside of that is that it's because things have gotten worse, and it adds a lot more urgency to our work. What I'll do now is lead you through some of the thoughts that basically some of the things that we're thinking about lately with regard to the campaign and some of the solutions that we're putting together. And then when you all can ask questions and whatever, but I also invite your input and your ideas to this, because basically where we are in the really is a shortage of housing overall. We had a study done by the economist Donald Clever Smith that came out last December. He's a great, smart guy. He's been an advisor for Governor Rell and is really well respected. And basically what his report showed us is that we just have not had enough supply of housing being created to meet the need of people who want to live here. And through basic economics of supply and demand, if you don't have enough housing, it's going to drive up the cost. So this got us thinking, well, maybe we could actually deal with that overall shortage of housing in the market. And I think over the years there's been a lot of great work done to create affordable housing, but we've seen it not make enough of an impact, because you can wedge in affordable units for people who need them, and it's great for the people living there, but we're trying to keep up with this out-of-control real estate market, and prices are going through the roof and hurting a lot of people. So if through some of these ideas we could start to look at that overall market and actually bring it under control, it's in construction of units per capita. It's not just because Connecticut is a smaller state, that's per capita construction. So the rest of the country is creating more housing than we are, and that's a big part of why we have an undersupply and now very high housing costs. What this is doing is leading a lot of people to leave the state because they can find housing that's more affordable elsewhere. So, like in that video, we heard from the realtor who would bring in people who were trying to relocate to Connecticut. They look for housing and they say no thanks because the workers can't afford it. And sometimes even the upper management doesn't want the housing because they can get a better deal elsewhere. So it was a few years ago we started to see fewer companies locating to Connecticut, but now we're hearing more stories about existing companies who can't expand. They'd like to add an additional store, additional warehouse, additional offices, whatever, and beef up, but that's hard to do when they have trouble attracting workers. So there's many organizations that have a job open and they just can't get people to take it, especially very specialized professions where you have started in Fairfield County because of its proximity to New York City. A lot of people could go into the city to work, and you saw a lot of job growth in Stamford, Norwalk, Danbury, etc. So it started there, but it has now spread through the whole state. So even as of 2004, it was pretty bad. There were 102 out of 169 towns in Connecticut where the median income would not afford you the median priced home. And there are many ways that you can measure the affordability of a market. This is one yardstick of it. But it's a pretty good one, and you should consider that the median income should afford a median home. That number jumped to 157 towns the next year out of 169. So it's showing us that that problem is definitely spreading, and what used to be a Fairfield County problem is now being experienced throughout the whole state. That is happening because it used to be you'd have Fairfield County folks who were, maybe more shouting about it than others, but now, last couple of years, you've seen a lot of towns in Connecticut who are now starting to see that, where they're seeing long-time residents leaving. They're seeing their businesses struggling because they can't employ workers, and again, that gives us more motivation to get some things done. Donald Clever Smith's study, in addition to the general shortage of housing, also discovered that about 1/5 of Connecticut households are strained with regard to housing costs. That means they're paying over 30% of their income for housing, and earning less than 80% of median income. So why does housing cost so much? Well, we talked about the undersupply, and just to give you a look at what that's doing is, you see wages in the 0.5% over 5 years. But even though wages are increasing, people are falling further behind because it's far outstripped by the housing costs. And so even though Connecticut has the highest per capita income in the country, it doesn't mean much when it all goes toward housing, and people are still falling further behind. Again, we've got high demand and low supply of all types of housing. We're talking ownership, rental, multifamily, single family. We need more of all of it. A lot of that is because of high land costs. This happens for a couple reasons. A lot of it driven at the local level. A lot of it based on zoning. Some towns are afraid of new housing, especially affordable housing, worried about those people moving in, or misconceptions about the people who are going to live there, misconceptions about impact that it might have on their property taxes, etc. But what's happening is, due to some of that resistance, a lot of towns are zoning so that they only allow 1 acre zoning, 1.5, 2 acres sometimes. And what that does is, for a developer to create housing, to buy that larger chunk of land costs more money. And so the price of that house on it has to go for more for that the developer to make a profit. Problem. And even before me offering you these stats, a lot of you knew it was a problem. That's why you're here. But what do we want to do, or what's going to happen if we don't have? We're going to continue losing our workers. 16 out of 20 of the occupations projected to grow fastest in Connecticut won't be able to afford a typical 2-bedroom apartment if these trends continue. Out of 620 occupations in Connecticut that are tracked by the State Department of Labor, almost half of them earn less than the $19.30 an hour you would need to pay fair market rent on a 2-bedroom apartment. So it's not a fancy apartment. It has state revenue impact because as you have people leaving the state and businesses leaving the state because of that, that's less state revenue that's going to come in through sales tax and income tax. So $133 million annually could be lost to the state if the problem continues. And we hope that'll be motivating for state legislators and the governor. The awareness of the problem is growing, and some recent polling done in May showed us that a strong majority of residents in Connecticut are very concerned about their own housing costs, but then also of their kids. And there's a lot of baby boomers who have children reaching adulthood, and those children can't stay here. So if they've gone off to college, they go to live elsewhere and they don't come back. Or if they've stayed here, they decide to leave. It has a big impact on an aging population, even for seniors themselves who are trying to live on a fixed income. But then it's a double whammy when your adult children have to live elsewhere and you don't have somebody to mow your lawn, help you with grocery shopping, help out to really solve the problem. And I'll give you some of the ideas that we're coming up with. A lot of this is a public relations effort, because as many of you know, there's been misperceptions about affordable housing, that people think it will worsen their neighborhoods, it will lower their property costs, etc. And a lot of that is just not understanding what affordable housing is. So we're trying to just show people lots of pretty pictures of housing, to have them realize that usually it's well built, it's durable, it's well designed, it's beautiful, versatile, because it's basically like any other housing. And in many cases, in people who live in affordable housing, there is definitely need for housing for people of very low income, and that will continue, and we always have to address that. But affordable housing is also for people of middle income, because the problem has worsened. And so a lot of towns are fearful that they're going to bring in, I don't know, bad elements, and they think that there's going to be a gang living next door or something crazy like that, and it's just not the case. Usually it's people in their own town, people who their economy and municipality depend on, need the housing. We also have some myths to deflate, like the property values, like I mentioned. I'm sorry. There has been a lot of research done on this because it has been a concern of towns here and across the country about this, and the study has really shown that it doesn't have an impact on surrounding property values. I talked a little bit about the town's education budget, so I won't belabor that more, but one spot that I forgot to mention is that part of what's gone on with school costs has been a demographic issue. There's just been the last decade or so more kids to educate, but then as the demographic shifts, that's actually expected to decline a bit. So towns have seen this upswing in education costs, and that leads to them being very concerned about it. But even just demographics are going to bring that in line a bit. Also notable is that studies done in Massachusetts on this education cost issue have found that it's not so much, and you don't have to worry about it. We're screwed if we don't deal with this. I mean, I put this in very blunt terms, and it's not just, me being a housing advocate trying to say what I can to get people to pay attention. It's that we are going to hit a really big problem because our economy is going to go downhill. And, in a turbulent economy to begin with a lot of issues happening in the country and the world that make things a little shaky, we don't want to add to it a housing crunch where our workers and businesses leave because people can't afford housing here. And so as businesses and jobs go, it's a big problem. And, people who are in a good situation right now, they might own their own home. They might be, and they're seeing their home value increase as home prices have gone up, and they feel good about that rising home value. And they have, they're stably employed, and they're feeling all right. Might not be understanding that their own job could be at stake if their company decides to up and leave. So, it's not just those people who need housing or who are currently struggling, it's really all of us. Funds for affordable housing development, because if it takes this much to create a unit of housing, but the person of lower or middle income who can only afford this much, there has to be something to make up that gap, or else it's not going to get built because no developer wants to take a loss. So we're looking at various mechanisms where the state can help out on affordability. So this could be expansion of the Housing Trust Fund that came into play a couple years ago. This could be more rental subsidies. We're looking at those various ways that could happen. In addition, we're also trying to find ways that the system could be streamlined so that, as everyone knows, time is money. And so if a developer is trying to make housing and they have to, when you make affordable housing, you have to assemble a lot of different funding sources, which is a complicated mess. And so each step in that process takes time, and the longer it takes to make the housing, the more expensive it is, because you're sitting on a property, you're still paying tax on it, you're paying your staff, everything else. And so if you can quicken that process, it's going to help the housing happen. Further, it could be possible to get for-profit developers involved. One of the things that I haven't mentioned so far that really excites me about this work is that there's amazing potential here to help our cities. And we've got this pent-up housing demand in the state. And if we can create the units to meet that demand and allow cities to tap into that development, what that does is it gives a facelift to some neighborhoods that that are having trouble. And if you can make them look better and make them more attractive for people to live and work and invest there, it's going to be a good thing. And so if we can help cities tap into this, it's going to be a really amazing thing. Again, this one's in New Haven. You know, it's amazing what this can do for a neighborhood. So I'll leave that up for a moment if anyone wants to scribble down contact information. And I've got some business cards in my pocket.